But,
Just trying to
you know,
No, we
come
don't.
on,
But-
you
Use
know,
them sewer and
you
use the
need
full
a
mile
little
under.
lightheartedness.
Yeah.
No, you don't taste dates anymore, to be honest with you.
Fifth.
And they're like, hey, you're done.
Fourth or the
How did
fifth?
you find all over them?
The fifth?
Yeah.
March 5th, 2013, work session. Mr. Wareheim absent, all other members present. 10 a.m.
Okay. I gotta read on an amendment to the resolution for the engineer. There was an error of 60 cents per hour, so they'll correct that. Should put that right here.
Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do it this afternoon?
No, this afternoon, read it on, yeah. And Frank just came over in a rush regarding the work at the pavilion that we have to repair. They determined that the substructure, is that what you call it,
Yes.
is rotted out.
The decking that goes around the building, we're replacing some of it, and we found out, and I apologize to the board, because I just found out
There's
about
nothing
this
to apologize about, Frank.
last night, and then we got the engineer to take a look at it, to confirm it, and there's a copy from the engineer, his letter. But the supports to the decking that goes around the building apparently are rotted out, and they need to be replaced. And the contractor also says that the stairway leading up to those decking is not in the best of shape and should also be replaced. And so I'm asking the board if we could use park fund monies, which we've already started using, some of them. 95% of this job is actually paid for out of community
This
development.
is yours, Bob.
But we need $11,400
This is
more.
And that does the stairs, the
The stairs
substructure,
and the
everything?
substructure, yes. We already paid for the decking.
Right now.
The decking's already taken
Oh,
care of.
Thank God they found it before it
So-
collapsed during the season.
I spoke to Councilman McCarthy about this and to the supervisor just like 2 minutes before this meeting. And if, my recommendation is that all I need is the board's permission and we could order the supplies. It's a 3-week lead time to get the supplies in. But Councilman McCarthy said we could have it as a read-on, have no problem in putting a resolution
I
together.
think we should, because it's a change order to the original bid.
Well, the change order is one thing, we also have to allocate the money, so I'll have that resolution for the next meeting as well. Okay, so we,
For tonight?
no,
This afternoon,
I don't think I could have all that stuff done.
Okay.
But but we're not gonna be paying them anyways.
The
to do the
time, it's
job.
not time sensitive.
No,
We'll
it's
get it
not.
done next week.
You just need the approval, basically, so
Right.
that way they can order materials.
That's correct.
That's what's sensitive.
And then we could deal with it at the next meeting, if that's all right
I
with the
have no
board.
problem at all.
No problem.
Okay?
I made a note here, and I don't know what this is about, but, the attorney, is he coming in? John said that he would be in here,
He shouldn't, maybe he doesn't know.
Matthew. I'm pretty sure this is
Want me to give
executive
him a call?
session.
Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah.
I don't know if you call this personnel, but I think I can do this. In April last year, you fellows signed a document asking that department heads who take scheduled vacation call in to the, advise the town council office via email.
Yeah.
Okay, I just would like to expand on that because sometimes I don't get department heads in at all. That the same would require them to call in to the supervisor's office or the council when they leave. Like, Frank, where are you going today? You just said you were going out to go see something today. Didn't you tell me that?
Yeah, well, I'm going out to a site inspection.
No,
yes.
okay, so what I'm saying here is, we would ask that you call either the council office or the supervisor's office.
I think it should be both offices,
Right.
personally.
I'm going out to see a site inspection.
Okay.
I don't know if it works for you fellas, but I gotta tell you, sometimes there's just not enough people around when you need them,
Well, I understand that, but I'm not sure that that's really
okay?
workable. You know, I mean, Frank goes in and out quite often, I'm sure. And,
Well, if he's going
People like
off town
Valentine.
property, basically, if he's going to the building department, that's one thing, but if he's going out off-site to an inspection, you know, the supervisor's right, you can call and call and call. It takes you 5 different phone calls to get any department head half the time. We should know where people are going, so we have a little bit of,
well,
Okay, if there's
I
no
think that's
interest
a
in
little
it-
overly
No, I
restrictive.
have interest in it.
Okay.
I think we need to start knowing where our department heads are, because basically, half of them are ghosts.
Well, I think the truth is, if we absolutely have to get them, we get them on a cell phone. And if we can't get them on the cell phone, well, then that's a problem. But I haven't encountered that at all. I think it's a little bit overly restrictive.
Okay. The only problem with the cell phone is they could be somewhere where they're not saying the simple R.
Well,
Okay, but anyway, it's something for you to.
but they're not going to tell you that either. They're
Yeah.
not going to put that in writing
I don't
for
think
you.
it's that difficult to report to your bosses that you're going off of town facilities. I don't think that's improper to do that. I really think, as a boss, that's what you want. You want your subordinates to let you know what you're doing. I mean, not to have the way it is now. Everybody just comes and goes as they please. I can't see not doing something
All
like
right,
that.
well, we mentioned it, there's four of us here.
Well, I'm just saying, to myself, I mean,
Okay.
I had over 500 employees in all my car agencies. I knew where they were at all times through their superior. We are these people's superiors, and we should know where our employees are at all times.
But I think
But some
that,
people don't
that
want accountability.
these people are responsible people who have duties sometimes out of the office, and I don't know that it's wise or necessary to be holding them down to, I'm going to be in Smithtown today, here's where I'm going. I'm not sure that's necessary. But,
I don't think it's unreasonable for accountability. I mean, it's not that difficult to pick up the phone to your bosses, I mean, multiple department heads do it now, already. I mean, why should some do it and some don't? I mean, everybody should be held to the same standard.
The reason I bring it up is not, because in many instances, and you're right, the secretary said, I will have him call you, and he call, the person or persons call from a cell phone. And when that happens, it doesn't mean that they're at where they're supposed to be, or at least alleged to be.
Oh, that's
But
true.
you can think about it, it's okay.
That's true.
Matthew, you were here for something?
Pat, could I just make an
Oh,
issue?
I'm sorry, I'm
Be-
sorry.
Before we go too far, I just want to address something. You called this work session
Right.
last week,
Right.
and I then sent something up to
No,
you
it was
requesting.
on the agenda,
Yeah, and I
Okay.
requested then that we have an
Yeah.
agenda,
right.
and I sent it up on the 28th, I think, and I got it back yesterday
Right.
afternoon at 4 o'clock. I would
Right.
simply request that when we do set up a work session, we should know as far in advance as possible
Sure.
as to what it's about.
The problem was that we hadn't met. I put that on knowing that there would be things, and then I had to do some research about the capital budget, which is on the list, which, by the way, is not ready. And it's always in flux here, and it troubles me because there's some items on there that should be obtained, like the pump stations for the two pumping stations, the generators. The capital budget, unless we decide we're gonna cut off any other products, they just keep adding on and adding on. And so that's why that wasn't ready on the date you wanted. Personnel matters, that was what I just brought up, and I don't think there's any big deal there. And I wrote down Hightower, that we get a review of Hightower from the town attorney, where we're at. So those were the matters I wanted to speak about. And I have something in here, which I sent to John Zolo with an email. We can do it on the work session on March 5th, and I think it's a lawsuit, so you would not discuss it openly. Do you want to look at this, Matthew? Other than that, I don't have anything. Did you have anything?
I'd like to have Matt come up and go over this Hightower situation. Mr. Jakubowski.
And by the way, on the capital budget, I said, Lou, synthesize it down, send it to the board. We have to take this action quickly, otherwise this equipment will not be coming till
Yeah,
the end of the year.
yeah, as I understand it, he's not quite ready with his
Yeah, and
figures.
there's everything, every day there's something new to add on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Matthew.
Morning, Matthew. How are you, sir? From what I understand, actually I saw it in today's Newsday, that Mr. Wareheim said Mr. Zolo had told him before the vote that the resolution he gave the supervisor Thursday night was improper.
What vote? What?
The vote for declaring
Town board meeting?
the high tower, declaring them unsafe. And he told Mr. Wareheim before the meeting that his resolution was improper. If it was improper, I don't know if it was or not, I just know what the Newsday said today and what Mr. Wareheim's comment was. And I don't know why John would give us a resolution that's improper to vote on. If he would have just said, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, the resolution I just handed you doesn't have all the facts in it, could it wait until Tuesday? Well, he's not here to defend himself, but I find it unconscionable that he just hands the supervisor a resolution. I asked him to bring it. I asked him to bring the resolution because of the fact that if he sends this letter here, this is on February 28th at 3:41 in the afternoon. Please consider adjourning this matter for another 30 days per Mr. Jeff Brown's letter attached. So Mr. Jeff Brown's asked for it, but Mr. Jeff Brown's referring to an April 18th of 2012 letter that's 11 months old that has, and he's saying what the building department said. So I asked John, how can you do this, in emails back and forth, how can you do this without having any backup building department support? And so John Bongino comes back in an email stating that, let me tell you exactly what it is, so that way you have it. Because my comment to John was, I see nothing from the building department saying these violations have been corrected. Without that report, we're operating in the blind. And then John Bongino comes back at two other emails. The building department still considers these structures unsafe, as described as our town code. And that's from his email. So I asked John to bring the proper resolution to the meeting that night, which is right here in these emails, so we can adopt it, because keeping these two unsafe structures after 3 meetings, and John depending on an April of 2012 11-month-old memo, was totally wrong. And I don't understand. And then he brings the resolution. According to today's Newsday, he told Mr. Wareheim at the meeting before he voted that his resolution was improper, instead of just telling the whole board. And I find that to be blatant incompetency. If he would have just said, like John has no problem opening his mouth all the time, saying, Mr. Supervisor, I have a problem with that. But he should have said, Mr. Supervisor, the resolution, I actually have it right here, that I gave you was missing some factual details. Supervisor, I'm not going to speak for him. I know what he would have said, though. And what would have said was, okay, we'll wait until March 5th, which is today, 5 days later. I mean, I don't understand, where Mr. Zolo's coming from. I wish he was here. I'd ask him to his face. I will ask him to his face. I know he's had to go to court today. I will ask him to his face at the March 5th meeting. But Mr. Zolo has to decide, and this is to the board, not to Mr. Him. He has to decide whether he's going to serve 117,000 residents of the town of Smithtown or continue in private practice, because one or both are going to fail. And it's his law license that's going to be in effect. It's been multiple times that he's had to reverse himself on paperwork he's given us because of him shooting from the hip. We gave him the board gave him a raise to be the town attorney. Then he decides to keep his private practice. You cannot do a private practice and represent the 117,000 people of the town of Smithtown both properly.
I don't think we gave him a raise.
Yes, you
Tom.
did.
No, we hired him at a certain
Well, he
fee.
got a raise over the prior town attorney.
Well, that's true.
It's the same thing. He got a raise over the prior town attorney. Apples and apples, oranges and oranges. But the bottom line is, I talked to the board, and it's probably going to go in deaf ear because, I didn't vote to appoint him. He's either a town attorney or he's a practicing attorney. I don't know if the supervisor made a comment or was asking for this to find John Zolo. You never can find John Zolo. Every time, let me transfer you to his cell phone. Let me transfer you to your cell phone. Let me transfer you to your cell phone. You never can find John Zolo in the office, ever. But you drive by Southern Boulevard and his car's in the parking lot. I don't understand. And that's not the kind of town attorney that this board should be having for us.
Well, I've never driven by Southern Boulevard, so I can't answer that. I could tell you every time I try to get him, I get him.
Do you get him in his office? You have to get
I
tapped
him
out
in the
to his cell
office, or he
phone.
calls in, whatever.
It's
I'm
just,
satisfied I reach him when I need to reach him.
the bottom line is you got to decide, do we want a full-time town attorney and a full-time practicing attorney? You can't do both 100%. You have to serve one or the other. And our town attorney is a too important job to be doing 2 careers at the same time.
Well, I'm not in disagreement with that, Tony.
Well,
And-
John is here today. He's right now.
I know, he had to go to court. I know.
Yes, he's.
I
probably-
understand
He's
that.
working on going to
No, I
court.
understand that. This is not
But
about that. This is in
I
general.
have to say, for the supermajority of the time that I call the town attorney's office, I do get John Zolo, and I ask him to come down. He does come down, so he's in the building. Supermajority bringing well over 80% of the time.
You know,
I don't understand what that means.
Well, that means 80% of the time I call him.
Oh, the
he's
super
within-
majority of times you
Right.
call, oh, okay. Well, that's not the case with me, I can tell you that,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
But
we didn't vote for him. Maybe that's why.
But I want to be clear about this. This is not, this recommendation is not targeting Mr. Zolo.
No, it's targeting, I'm sorry,
Many
Mr. Bell, I don't mean to
other-
interrupt. It's targeting that he gives us an improper document
Oh.
to do as a read-on, okay? And he tells Mr. Wareheim, which I can understand,
That's
that
wrong.
there's something wrong with the document. If he would've just said, Mr. Supervisor, Mr. Creighton, Mr. Malloy, Mr. McCarthy, there's something wrong with this document. Bob said in today's Newsday. It just came in as a read-on. I didn't know what was
saw
wrong with it.
The first time I saw it is when the supervisor.
Right,
read
that's
it.
what you said today. I don't understand that. You didn't even know that it was, I would've known it was improper. Why would we vote an improper resolution? It was a waste of time.
But I think also, if you brought it up, and you did bring it up, you could have discussed it with me before the,
I tried to get
I
to
was
everybody,
here.
and
I was here before the meeting with you,
which one's that? What meeting was that?
the last meeting, when it was read on.
No, it was Thursday night it was read on.
Thursday night.
Right.
That's what I said, the last meeting.
And I told Mr. Wareheim, I got to Mr. Malloy, and by the time, I
You didn't
couldn't,
get to me, and I'm not
I
saying anything.
didn't say I got to you. Can I finish?
Wait a minute, let me finish. I didn't say, I said you could have discussed it with me, but you didn't discuss it with me, and I objected to it solely on the basis that I never saw it.
I know that, and I can understand what you did, totally. But the bottom line is, John Zolo, as our attorney, should have said, I made a mistake. The resolution I gave the supervisor for a read-on was infactual. And I'm not gonna speak for the supervisor. I know what he would have done. You tell me what you would have did, Patrick, if John Zolo said, there's pertinent things missing from the resolution.
We wouldn't have read it on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I can understand, Bob, you not voting on it, because maybe you weren't aware of it. I couldn't get to all four people besides myself before the meeting, because it came in so late, at 3:41 in the afternoon. Nobody was downstairs in the office.
There's another problem, though, which is unanswered, and that is that we had given Mr. Brown, who is the new owner, some time to try to fix the building up, and as I understand it, I was told the other day that he's in contract to sell the house,
Well, as of this morning, I
which
was-
changes a whole bunch of things. So,
No, it doesn't change that it's an unsafe structure.
Tommy, I'm the one that originally said it was unsafe and
saying
it
you
should be
didn't.
taken down. What I'm saying now, if the man is in contract to sell the property and for somebody to rebuild it, that changes the entire thing.
It still states that by us stating it's an unsafe structure, right now, we know it's an unsafe structure for many months. We haven't voted on an unsafe structure. We vote on an unsafe
Many
structure.
years.
It has to be bid out. Multiple things have to be happen. You got another
Mm-hmm.
60, 90, 120 days before you even get any kind of town employees or operating equipment on there to tear it down. It basically puts pressure on him to get it done and make it not an unsafe structure to the town residents. The people living around that are sick and tired of looking at that mess. And the bottom line is, we keep giving extension after an extension after extension. We owe the town of Smithtown not to have the liability of knowing about an unsafe structure and not declaring it unsafe. We're just doing our job. We're not saying run in there tomorrow with a bulldozer. It's a process that takes 120 days at least before you can do that. But the bottom line, it puts pressure on Mr. Brown to go and either get these things safe, and it's not much, from what I understand, to get them safe.
Well,
Yeah.
can I interrupt there for a second? It would be 4 weeks ago, the last Tuesday meeting,
Right.
right?
And the meeting before that also.
No, well, at least the last meeting, and I asked the town attorney, I said, we've now indicated that this is an unsafe building by giving him an extra week or 2 or 3. Are we not placing the town in a liability jeopardy? And John, I don't know what his answer was, he said, okay, we all acceded to that, and we gave the fellow whatever time that was allotted to him, 2 weeks, whatever. Then, when that thing was handed to me, I assumed that that was going to be another extension. Or the letter said there'd be another extension. Well, where does liability for the town begin and end if you declare a structure unsafe? That's,
Well, I don't think, we're not absorbing that liability. because it's not our property. But, we do, we've involved ourselves in the situation, so, we are carrying it through. To speak to that resolution, I discussed it with John, and he said he'd come in and go over it, but it was his understanding that that was just for information purposes, that wasn't going to be read on.
No, I agreed to the memo right here. It said, please bring the proper documentation tonight for that resolution to be read on to declare it unsafe as per the Town of Smithtown Building Director. He knew it was being read on. That's a bunch of BS in plain English. John knew it was being read on. He owed his lawyer practice and product to be proper to present it to the town board, or say to the town board that the product I just gave you was improper, it's not, the content isn't correct. I will bring it to you on March 5th with the proper contact. And none of us would have voted on it that night, and it would have been done today. It's only 5 days later.
But the resolution itself wasn't improper, it was inaccurate. Because
Improper, inaccurate, I mean, that's a play
Well,
of words,
no,
Mr. Chekhovsky.
Why
No,
was
I
it,
just,
why was it
it's
inaccurate?
inaccurate because of the change in ownership.
Oh.
And that's the problem.
Do we notice a
have.
change of
Yeah,
ownership?
but
Have we
why
pulled the
weren't
title
we told there
report?
was a change of ownership? Why weren't we told that?
Well, no, the original change of ownership to Jeffrey Brown.
Have we
Right.
checked the
Which-
title
where
report
we've
with the
got-
Suffolk County Clerk's office to see if that's correct? Anybody in the law office?
That I'm not aware of.
I mean, so we don't even know. So John
But
Zoll
they-
is telling you factually, Mr. Brown's the owner, but factually, unfortunately, Mr. Zoll didn't do his job again to go call the county clerk's office to find out who's entitled to this property.
Mr. Brown was here and swore before the board that he was the owner.
I could swear I'm Mickey Mouse too,
You could,
but I'm
that's
not.
true.
You know?
That's true, you could.
Well, let me
We-
get
we
off that
have-
for a minute, Matthew, I don't want to put you on the spot. Are we saying that if a structure has been declared unsafe by the building department, aren't we I shouldn't say the word like, aren't we on notice that we're telling the public it's unsafe? And no, does that give us a responsibility now? That's the question that I had raised 4 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago with John. If you extend this, and we've said on more than one occasion, this building is dangerous and unsafe, as he just said, Mr. Creighton just said, doesn't that put liability on our shoulders?
Well, what we've been working with the property owner is to render it safe.
No, I know
in the-
that, I
In
know
the
that.
interim. And we have, right now, we have received Jeffrey Brown, who appeared before the board in the past, does have a contract of sale to sell the property to William Alvaro. And I believe he's in the audience today. And if the board has any questions about the transfer of ownership, it should be closing in 30 days, so that'll put us to April 15th.
Okay, but see, that's the beauty of the discussion. If you're saying delay going in to remediate it, and that's okay with me,
Mhm.
if someone were to enter that property and fall through the basement, or a beam falls on it, someone that, are you saying the town has no liability here after we've declared it unsafe? That's my problem with these extensions. I'm wonderful that it's sold and somebody's gonna make them look beautiful and what have you. But where is our liability begin and where does it end?
Well, to ensure the public safety as well as no liability, we could have the building department go out and see what the current status of the property is.
They have
If-
gone
if
out,
it
and
is-
John Bongino said, as of 25 minutes ago, the structures are deemed unsafe by his department, period. And he says, Mr. Zolo knows that. And he's talked to Mr. Brown on the phone. And the bottom line, these probably can be saved. But the bottom line is, we owe it to the town of Smithtown doing our due diligence to declare them unsafe, which gives them, like I said, a multiple length of time to get them in a safe, and then we rescind our resolution. But at least we're protecting the town of Smithtown, and God forbid something did happen for someone walking into that building stating that we know it's unsafe, but we didn't declare it unsafe, but the new gentleman who's buying it walks in, like the supervisor just said, with multiple people thinking of buying it or doing work in it, and the thing collapses on them. Well, guess what? We're in
As
the
I
lawsuit down
understand
in
it, we had
Vanessa Park
already
River,
made
same way.
arrangements. We were in the process of having, the building was going to be raised.
Mhm.
We were in that process. We were moving along that way. Now, this resolution comes up at a time when we're already in conversation with the new owner.
I haven't been in conversation with the new owner.
I haven't been in conversation with him, but the town board has, been, or the town attorney has been, and the building department has been. And that's why my question is, why do we put this resolution on in the first place? We're either negotiating with the man to clear up the property, or we're gonna take the building down, one of the two.
But that wasn't
We
known.
can't do both.
But that wasn't known to me or anybody.
No, it
I
wasn't
didn't know
known to me.
that. So therefore, when
That's
I'm-
my point, it wasn't known.
so when I'm presented with a resolution to read on, I read it on, as asked to do. Now, if it was inaccurate, is that the word you used? Because the owner had changed hands?
Yes.
Well, why wasn't I or anybody else informed about that?
Mr. Wareheim was.
Well, I
Says in
wasn't.
today's Newsday. All he had to do, as John was to tell us all, like I said before, is my resolution I brought in tonight that's gonna be read on. And John walked behind me just before the vote. He says, could you not do this today? He didn't say, because his resolution's improper. He just said, could you not do this today? I said, no, John, the building department in this memo states that the building stating these violations, and we still consider the building unsafe to enter.
But did you see, you saw the memo?
John Zollo
And you
emailed it to
saw the-
everybody.
And you saw the name Powell on it? And you accepted that? When you
I'm
know
go-
the owner is Mr.
I'm
Brown?
not the town attorney, Mr. Creighton.
No, but you do know the name Powell, and you do know the name Brown. There's a difference in the two. If you read it, it says Mr. Powell.
I saw the resolution the same time everybody saw it when Mr. Vecchio read it that night, because I asked John Zollo to bring the proper resolution to the meeting to read on, because the building department stated it's unsafe. His comment to me was, Mr. Zollo was, I wish the Jonah would have told me that the buildings are still unsafe. I said, John, that's between, you said you contacted the building
But he did
department.
ask you not to read it on.
He asked me if you would consider not voting on it, and I said no, because the building department has deemed these buildings unsafe to enter.
All right.
So we should just basically let people enter unsafe buildings in this town? If that's the way you want to run government, God bless you, not me.
Well, let me ask question. Okay, so the ownership changes hands. What makes that resolution, other than the name not being correct, improper? We want the buildings to be made safe, and that gives a time period to make them safe, correct?
Yes.
So what's the
That's
problem?
what I'm saying. There's
What's the
basically-
problem?
It basically makes, it's basically a push to make these buildings safe. What John Bongino told me this morning, and I'll tell you exactly what he said to me, the buildings have to be gutted. All the sheetrock has to come off, all the electrical has to be pulled out of the buildings, and then they can go in and inspect everything to see what's safe and what's not safe, and how far the new owners will have to go to make it safe. And they have to pull a current building permit, which is totally expired. There's a process they have to do. All we're doing is protecting the taxpayers by saying we've declared this building unsafe, and the new owners, I'm sure they're not gonna sit for the next 120 days and do nothing. All we're doing is protecting the taxpayers of the town of Smithtown in case someone just falls through the floor and gets hurt, injured, killed, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not gonna run there tomorrow with a shovel.
Did the resolution give, assuming the resolution passed, it would give whoever the owner is X amount of time to come to a hearing?
Well, no, that resolution was to authorize the demolition.
The demolition,
And
okay.
to put out, go off the bid for demolition.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and that's the problem,
Yeah.
is that all the proceedings leading up to that were under a different property
Right.
owner.
Now, do we run into a due process clause with Mr. Brown being the titled owner, as he's saying? And
That's
we're going after.
That's the concern of my office, yes.
What does that mean?
That all those notices that we had in the past were to a
To a
different
different
property.
name, okay.
But Mr. Brown did come to the meeting stating, as Mr. Creighton said, that he is the owner of the property. I'll take him at his word for that. I am the owner. I know about all the prior notices. He even sends into John Zolo's packages letters stating all the old notices. So he can't say, I don't know anything about this.
But I
It's a
don't,
long
I don't think
shot.
Mr. Brown is doing that. My understanding is that Mr. Brown is doing his best to get the building
And
sold.
that's great. I want him to
Which is
sell them
why
and fix them and
we
make it
either
nice for
want
the
it
neighbors
taken
there.
down or we want it sold.
Right.
And the
Sold and
ideal would be for it to be sold. That would be better than us paying to have it taken down. Now, as I said to you earlier before, there's nobody who wants those buildings down any more than I do. I've been yelling about it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a process that we have to make up our mind. We're talking to Mr. Brown about correcting the situation. He's taking steps to correct the situation, And then in the meantime, we come up with this new bluff, if you want to call it that, to say, take the building down.
That was no
He
no
already
bluff.
knows it.
It wasn't a bluff.
He already knows it, we're just reiterating it again.
The
And
bottom
that's
line,
what's caused the problem.
Mr. Brown is saying he's doing things to remediate the unsafe structure. All he's been doing is basically walking builders and potential buyers in and out of the building and hasn't done a damn thing to make him not unsafe. And that's what we have to protect the taxpayers and the people and the residents of the town of Smithtown
Okay,
by declaring it unsafe. And they have plenty of time to fix them. You could go in there, gut the sheetrock, building department comes in, does a framing inspection, a foundation inspection, they fix what's right, and we rescind the resolution. But by putting the resolution on, we protect the taxpayers of the town of Smithtown from a potential possible lawsuit.
Okay, anybody else? Do you have anything for executive session?
No.
No.
Well, does anybody wish to put this resolution on today in the proper form?
Well, that's a question that, no one seems to, if you go back and read the record of 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I kept asking the town attorney, if we give this extension, is there a liability factor for the town? That, obviously, that question is still unanswered, and the building is still unsafe. And I'm not concerned, I'm concerned about our liability, having declared it that, so.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I tend to agree with Matt. Property is owned by Mr. Brown, who is responsible for it.
Oh,
But the town of Smithtown is the
we
legal
think-
authority over it. If we declare the Smith Haven Mall unsafe, like which happened during the big snowstorm, they shut it down. Fire marshals were there, they shut it down, nobody was allowed entry. And that's what needs to be done. And no one, we're stating, and it should be posted, there's no entry allowed in these buildings because they're declared unsafe.
Well,
Well-
that's why I agree with you, and
Thank you.
that would, that would, I don't believe the grounds of the property are unsafe in any way. I don't think there's any open cesspools or
No.
anything like that. I think it's the structures themselves,
Right.
which I don't know if those have been secured, and I don't know if the notices that it's an unsafe structure have been posted.
And your office really doesn't know who the true owner is.
They do now, don't they?
No, they don't, because they really haven't done a search to the county clerk's office.
Well, I don't know.
They're assuming that this is what it
Yeah, I
is.
don't know whether or not that's been done or not.
Right.
But what we can ensure is that the building is secured,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe entry into the building is unsafe, and that's what the building department is saying, that they don't want to go inside because of the structure is possibly
Then
unsanitary.
these buildings should be reposted by the town of Smithtown Building Department / Public Safety Department with our big red and white signs that these buildings are unsafe to enter, like we do all the time. We did it at the site of lumber collapse on Jericho Turnpike, did it at the bowling alley, unsafe to enter. And do whatever we need to do to protect, if you don't want to pass this resolution, Mr. Creighton, do whatever we need to do to protect.
Tommy,
protect
we have
it.
sent people there for the last 2 years. I sent public safety there, I sent the building department there. It took the building department forever to change their idea. First, they said it was a safe parcel of land. Then they finally said, sometime around May of last year, that it was an unsafe building. I have been yapping for 2 years to get those buildings taken down. What I'm talking about here is we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. We're talking to wait a minute,
You might be, I'm
we're
not.
talking to Mr. Brown, I know you're not. We're talking to Mr. Brown about
it I?
correcting the situation. And then we're saying that we're going to take the building down if you don't correct the situation. And this resolution doesn't change anything. All you're doing is reiterating, even though it was the wrong format, the wrong name, you're reiterating to him that we're going to take the buildings down if he doesn't do something. He's in the process of doing something. We have to make the decision, is what he is doing not enough? And if it's not enough, then we take the buildings down. But then we got to negotiate with him in good faith. We can't say to him, we're going to negotiate with you and you're going to take the buildings down if you do this, this, and this, or if you don't do it, we're going to take the buildings down.
Well, since he came to us about 6 weeks ago and said he was going to make these buildings safe so he can show his potential buyers, he has not made the buildings safe. So he's not negotiating in good faith with the town board, according to John Bongino, who was our building director, who...
Well, if he's not negotiating in good faith, then we should redo the resolution and we should have the buildings raised.
Because
I don't know that he's not operating.
this was emailed to you on Friday at 3:41, just like everybody else. I just wasn't just the only person that got it. It went to all 5 of us.
From whom?
From John Zolo stating, and with a copy of Mr. Brown's letter. And what bothered me about Mr. Brown's letter to Mr. Zolo, it said, on Friday, February 22nd, town inspector inspected the above referenced properties and made the following determination. The residence was safe for entry to and concerns set forth on your April 18, 2012, 11 months ago, have been addressed. John Bongino's memo states they haven't been addressed. So who do I believe, Mr. Brown, or do I believe our director of building? And this was emailed at 3:41 to every town board member.
Well, the reason I asked if I could see it, it was not sent to me.
Yes, it was.
I'm telling you, it
It's on
wasn't.
your government computer. Your email is on the top of each, you, Mr. Vecchio, Mr. Malloy, Mr. Whiteheart, and myself, all got it at 3:41. John sent it out to everybody. Believe me, if he sent it out to me, he definitely sent it out to you guys.
I haven't seen it. There you go.
If you want, I'll go into your computer later and pull it up for you.
No, not to bother.
So, Mr. Town Attorney,
Yes,
at this moment in time, the building is unsafe. When is Mr. Brown going to make it safe?
I cannot answer that right
You
now.
can't answer that question.
All right, now what do we do to protect the people that might be going, the potential buyers, and anybody else that might be going into these buildings that the building department has declared unsafe, to protect them and to protect the town of Smithtown from a possible lawsuit?
Well, in the interim, we should ensure that the buildings are secured and that the necessary postings are there.
Yeah.
You know, if the board is interested, the potential purchaser for the property is willing to discuss it, to see what his plans are for the property.
You know, something, he's a potential purchaser, he's in a contract, he's not
Yeah.
the owner. I really have no desire to discuss it with someone that's just a contract vendee who could walk out tomorrow, because there's so much hair in this property, you don't know if it's even transferable. So it's nice that he's in contract, but I guarantee if you read here, title might not even be able to be passed.
Why?
Because one owner to another owner, former owners in a federal penitentiary, we don't know a chain of title.
Yeah.
We don't know if this, that's the new owners' attorneys or potential owners, their attorneys are gonna do their due diligence and find out. Hopefully it can be passed. Hopefully this can be cleaned up and fixed, because the horror these people have had to live with over there for these many, many, many years is not good.
What's your suggestions, Matthew?
Well, we should just make sure that the building is secure in the interim, so that no one can gain access, and as well as posted.
So we have to get Mr. Brown to do that immediately.
No, building department and public safety should declare the buildings unsafe, post them with our large red and white signs.
Okay.
Which I-
John, you can work that with Mr. Bongino?
It's already in place.
Right.
With all due respect, I think we're all talking in a third party here. This isn't very productive for this case, and it is possible litigation, so I don't know why we're discussing this in this form. If you want the facts, have Mr. Bongino come in and present the facts to you.
Well,
You
John,
wanna know
excuse me,
the-
John,
the-
it's
the
possible
town-
litigation, but it's not litigation.
Well, the town attorney, I believe, I might be incorrect in that, is the one that's heading up this specific case. So he's not here to discuss any of the facts. It would be my suggestion that Mr. Bongino be brought in so that the board can be brought up right to live time, and also the town attorney be brought in to find out what his,
Let me see that
what he's
building
doing
department.
tactical.
This is
wise in this case.
contract of sale.
No, the building department report.
My suggestion would be that we put an accurate resolution on and that we vote on it. And if we vote to raise it, then we vote to raise it.
Well, doesn't doing that give the, Mr. Brown, the time frame to go and make it safe?
Well, he's
Does.
been given the time, he's working on it.
I mean, your resolution could say, the town will take the raising actions for 120 days. It gives them, 4 months to make it safe, give them a time turn.
The only difference in what we've done is we haven't given them a firm time frame. We have given them an opportunity to begin to try to make it saleable, which he is doing. But if the town board feels that it's not fast enough, as this resolution was put forth for, then we should put on an accurate resolution and the town board should vote on it.
And the only reason that resolution was asked to be put forth for, when our building director states in quotes, building department still considers these buildings, quote, unsafe as described in town code, period.
So the bottom line is, we shouldn't be continuing to give these extensions.
I wouldn't. I'm only one of 5 though.
Well, I think Mr. Creighton just said,
Well,
put it on.
That's what Mr. Valentine mentioned is that the point of this, is the building unsafe or is it unsecured?
No, it's unsafe.
It's unsafe, and if it's, I don't know if it's.
It's been unsafe for years.
Well, that's why I'm saying, can the,
If we put it on in its accurate form, and we all see it,
If
and then we
people-
vote on it, then we've made a decision. And I say we should put it on in its accurate form, and we should vote on it.
Again, the other night, all Mr. Zoll, like you said, would have had to say is, my resolution, which I just handed the supervisor, is inaccurate to form. Could you wait until March 5th? And everybody would have waited till March 5th.
But Mr. Zolo also asked you not to read it on.
He
Correct.
asked me not to, but I have a statement here from the building director stating that the buildings are unsafe.
I understand that.
So
I
you take
understand
a
that.
letter dated April 11th of 2012, 11 months old, saying that everything's hunky-dory here, or do you take a current letter of February 28th from your building director stating the buildings are unsafe? I don't think an 11-month-old letter carries any water. And that's why I asked Mr. Zoll to bring the proper resolution to be asked to be read on, and all 5 of us
Well,
were
in
sitting there. If
this- in
anybody
this
had any
format-
questions, they could have
In
said.
this format, then, I would ask now amongst the 4 of us here, that we put the resolution on in its true, accurate content, and that we vote on it this afternoon.
That's fine with me.
Absolutely, but the point is, I guess, we didn't have to go on this long road to Tipperary to get to this point.
No,
That's
we
the
did
problem.
not. We did not. All Mr. Zoll had to say Thursday night was, I don't have the proper documents with me, can just wait until Tuesday, I'll have them then.
And also,
No
I
problem,
think,
Mr. Zolo.
I also think when there's a question of liability, there ought to be accurate answers,
No, that doesn't come out of town.
okay? It should be an accurate answer. Yes, you will suffer the liability because you've declared the building unsafe.
We asked
Or
John Zoll
the
that 3
opposite.
weeks ago, we never got
Yeah.
an answer.
Okay. All right, I don't have anything else to go,
I have nothing.
okay? And I'll move to
I
close the meeting.
just have an executive
Oh.
personnel.
Oh, personnel matter,
Yeah.
okay.
Move to go into executive session, Mr. Supervisor?
Second.
He has to do it, he's the chairman. You want to move to go into executive
Yes,
session?
move to go into executive session, yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, wait. Bob, Bob, Bob. You want to move?
Okay, I'll move to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.